All right, what we're going to be figuring out is how to find the linear factors of this guy right here. So we have the equation 5x cubed minus 44x squared plus 61x plus 14, and we're going to find all the linear factors of this particular problem. So what we're going to do, have already been given a factor of x minus 7. So what I'd like you to do right now is we're going to do some synthetic division. So I want you to make your little L. All right, create a little space, a little workspace here. We're going to start off with x cubed, then we're going to go down to x squared, x to the first, and x to the 0. Now it says we have a factor of x minus 7. Remember, what number would I have to plug in to make this equal to 0? I'd have to plug in a positive 7, so we put a 7 right there. Now how many x cubes do we have, everybody? 5. So we have 5, so put 5. How many x squareds do we have? Negative 44. And we have 61 x's. And we have 14x to the 0. That's your constant that's sitting at the end. Now when you're doing synthetic division, what's the very first thing we always do? We always drop down this first number. So we drop down the 5. Then we multiply the 7 times the 5, and we get 35. But we have to add these together. So when I add these together, what's negative 44 plus a 35? That's going to still leave us with what? Negative 9. So you have negative 9 there. Now we're going to multiply these together, and we get negative 63. But then we have to add these together, and we get negative 2. We multiply these together and get negative 14, and add these together to get 0. Now that's good, because you guys remember that if we have a remainder of 0, that means we actually have what's called a factor. So that's good. But what does this 5 represent? It represents the number of x squareds that we have. This represents the number of x to the power of 1s, or x to the first, and this represents our constant at the end. So one of our factors is this. Now what we have left is we have this. 5x squared minus 9x minus 2. So what we're going to do today is we're going to teach you guys how to factor something that looks like this, where you have like a number other than a 1, since we have a number 5. So could you guys put a couple of parentheses in your journal? Put a couple of parentheses. Now, what are the only two factors of 5? The only two factors of 5 are 5 times what? 5 times 1. And then, what are the only factors of 2? Just 2 times 1. So we know we have to put a 5 here, and I'm not going to put a 1. I'm just going to put an x. So we know the first two terms of the binomials need to be a 5x and an x. Now, this is where you kind of have to play around with things, all right? Now, we're going to be talking about referring to the FOIL method. Now, in the FOIL method, the most important part of the FOIL method is this part right here. I call it the OI, all right? You think of AC/DC when they go, OI, OI, okay? Because that deals with the outer and the inner products, okay? So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to focus on the outer products and the inner products. So I'm going to write the word outer and inner. All right? Now, our outer and inner products, these guys right here, we need to try to get their sums to be a negative 9x. We want, when these are being added together, when I take those and I add those products together, I'm trying to get to a negative 9x. Okay? So check this out. I am going to put a 2 right here. And I'm going to put a 1 right here. And the whole purpose of me putting the 2 and the 1 right there is because what is 5x times 2? Right? So 5x times 2 is equal to 10x. And what is 1 times x equal to? X. Can I somehow get a 10x and an x to equal a negative 9x? I can if what number's negative? the negative 2, right? Because now if I do 5x times negative 2, what does that give me? That actually gives me a, not, I'm going to put a little tiny negative right there. That gives me a what? Negative 10x. And now when you add these together, you get what? Negative 9x. And so the 1 has to be positive. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor it the wrong way so you understand what it looks like when you factor it incorrectly. These are the correct factors, okay? But let me show you if you messed up and you put the 1 and the 2 in the wrong place. Okay, so just follow along right now. You don't have to write this down, just follow along because you have the correct answer. I'll just kind of switch it up. Watch what happens if I put a 2 here and a 1 there. Instead of a 1, 2, look what happens if I put a 2 and a 1. What's the outer product right there? 5 what? 5x. What's the inner product? 2x. Can I somehow get them to equal a negative 9? No, I can either get them equal to a what? A 3 or a 7. If they're both positive, I get them a 7. I can get a negative 3, a positive 3. So these outer products and inner products are the most important. All right, so listen up. Here's our final answer. You guys ready? Our final answer. What is one of our factors? X minus 7. What are the other two factors? 5x plus 1, and the other is x minus 2. So here we go. The final answer that we're going to write in is, I'm going to lead out with the 5x plus 1. I'm going to follow it with the x minus 2. And by the way, order does not matter here. It's okay. Remember, we're just multiplying. And then we're going to finish it with the x minus 7. What I want you guys to understand, if we were to multiply all those together, that would, we're not going to do that in this video. We're not going to take that time and do it. It would equal 5x cubed minus 44x squared plus 61x plus 14. This is the polynomial. And what are these all together called? They're called linear factors. So I want you guys, after you write that down, I want you guys to put your pens down, and I want you to watch what we're about to do. Now make sure you guys have this, and make sure you have it, because I'm going to need your help, okay? I'm going to need your help. I'm going to go real quick over to my Desmos, all right? And right here, I'm going to type in P of X, if I could do it correctly. All right, so it was 5x, was it 5x cubed? Okay, 5x cubed. And then what was it next? Help me out. Minus 44x squared plus 61x. And then what? Plus 14. Okay, so there we go. So there's our original equation, all right? Now, look what I'm gonna change it to f of x. I know it's just for a different one. F of x equals, just do linear factors. Ready? What was the first one? 5x what? Plus 1. Okay. And then we had, what else? X minus 2. All right. So x minus 2. And then what was the last one? X minus 7. Okay. So I want you guys to, here's the whole purpose of this. I want you guys to see that these are exactly the same function. This is just broken down into its factors. Now here's the cool news. Watch this. This is the part that I was like, what? When a teacher showed me. Of course, they didn't have a graphing calculator. They had to kind of show me by hand. But what are they called? These are called what? Linear factors, right? Watch what happens when I type in 5x plus 1. And then I type in x minus 2. And then I type in x minus 7. You're like, well, I have no idea what you're talking about. Right, now check this out. Look where they pass through. That, and right there. Where do they pass through? They literally pass through the places where the graph hits what? The x-axis. So that's why they're called linear factors, because they pass through the x-axis. All right? And that lets you know that these are the what? These are the correct answers. All right, so now we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the quiz, okay? Now, on the quiz, we have different function notation here. It says p of negative 2 equals something, p of negative 1 equals something. So we're going to show you how easy this is, okay? Now, when p of x is being divided by x minus 1, if you use this concept called synthetic substitution, all right, synthetic substitution, if you're dividing by x minus 1, basically you're evaluating the function at p of 1. Because what number would you have to plug in there to make it equal to 0? You'd have to plug in a 1. So I'm going to look at p of 1. P of 1, oh, right there, boom. So p of 1 equals 0. So I'm going to type in the number 0. Now, if I'm dividing by x plus 2, what number would I have to plug in there to make it equal to 0? Negative 2. So in this one, I'm actually evaluating p of negative 2. So p of negative 2 is 1. So I'm just going to put a 1. So that's a 0 and a 1. So that's what I'm going to type in. We'll call it a day. Well, not a day, but call it a problem. 0 and 1. Well, let me make sure I got that. So p of 1, yep, 0. Negative 2 is 1. I feel good about that. All right. Now, it says rewrite this as a product of linear factors. So I just did a really long one over that, so I'm going to go over this one a lot faster. So I'm going to do it like I would do it, not how I would teach it. So if you need to see this more than once, that's fine. Just rewind it and watch it again, because I ain't slowing down for nobody. All right, so here we go. That says 3x cubed, so I'm going to start out with x cubed, then I'm going to x squared, then x to the first, then x to the 0. That's supposed to be x to the 0. Now that says x minus 4. So if that says x minus 4, what number do you have to plug in? You have to plug in a 4, so I got to put a 4 right here. That tells me I got 3x cubes, I got negative 20x squareds, I got 37x's, and I got minus 20 at the end. Once again, you drop down the 3. 4 times 3 is 12. You add these together, you get negative 8. You multiply these together, you get negative 32. You add them together, you get 5. You multiply them together, you get 20. You add them together, you get 0. Like I said, I'm going faster than I did on the previous one. Whenever you get a 0, that's your remainder, right? That's your remainder. So we know that this is indeed a factor. So now all I got to do is finish factoring this guy. That's my x squareds. That's my x to the first. That's my x to the 0. So here's what I got. I got 3x squared minus 8x plus 5. Now this is going to be really, really, really easy, because what are the only factors of 3? Just 3 times 1. And what are the only factors of 5? Just 5 times 1. So, so I got a 3x and an x. So all I got to do is figure out, how do I get a negative 8 in the middle? So that 5 and 1, either I'm going to put a 1 and a 5 right here, which is that's what I'm going to do, okay? Or I'm going to put a 5 and a 1 right here, okay? So let's think about this. If I got to do the outer products and the inner products, that actually is going to help me out, because right now, what are my outer products? My outer products are 3x. And what are my inner products? 5x. This is going to work for me because that can get me to an 8x. But I need them to both be negative. So I got to make this negative. I got to make this negative. So I got to make both these negative. Now look what happens if I would have messed up and done it the other way. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back real quick and show you what would happen if I did it the wrong way. And I put the 5 out here and the 1 here. Look what my outer products and inner products would be here. Here it would be 15x and x, and that can't get me to a negative 8x. So that's wrong. So I'm going to go back to what we had, okay? Just remember, what did we have? We had this. Okay? So that works. That works. These are our factors. So our product of linear factors are 3x minus 5, x minus 1, and then our original factor was x minus 4. So I got to type in x minus 4. I already did one like this, so I'm not going to go back and explain everything. The first one I did really slowly, so it's the same concept, it's just different numbers. All right, so 3x, so now I got to do this. So we have parentheses, 3x minus 5, and then it was, let me look back real quick, it was x minus 1, And then we had, what else? We had x minus 4. All right. And so these three factors multiplied together would equal this bad mamma jamma, known as a polynomial, up here. Booyah! Nailed it. Thank you very much. All right. All right, and so this problem, we're trying to find the value of c so that x plus 3 is a factor. Now, whenever this is a factor, the remainder has to be equal to 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to set p of x equal to 0. So I'm going to put 0 equals parentheses cubed minus 4 open parentheses squared plus c times open parentheses plus 33. So literally, wherever there's a value of x, what number would you plug in here to make it equal to 0? You'd plug in a negative 3. So right here, I'm going to plug in a negative 3. I'm going to plug in a negative 3. I'm going to plug in a negative 3. So here's what we get. We get 0 equals. This becomes negative 27. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. 9 times negative 4 is negative 36 minus 3c plus 33. Now, if you're wondering what I'm doing, literally, I have to plug in here and here and here. I got to plug in that negative 3 so that I can solve for c. That's what I'm doing. I got to plug in that negative 3 to solve for c. Now, how do I combine like terms? You got to combine this term with this term and this term. So if I add these together, I get negative 3, and I have minus 27 more. So if you add all those together, you get negative 30. If you use a calculator, you're more than welcome to. Minus 3c. If I add 30 to both sides of the equal sign, so I add 30 here, and I add 30 here, I get 30 equals negative 3c. And then I divide both sides by negative 3. And c will equal negative 10. So in quick review, all I do is if this is a factor, I find the number that makes this equal to 0, plug it in, and then I solve for that specific letter known as c. And that's all you got to do. Negative 10. Voila. Keep going. All right, so here we go. Now I'm going to do a little division. It says divide the polynomials. This is very, very easy. I love synthetic division, so I'm going to use synthetic division. And you can only use synthetic division when you're dealing with linear factors. So since this is a linear factor, I can use synthetic division. Now if I'm dividing by x minus 3, that means I got to put a 3 right there, because you're trying to, what number would you make that equal to 0? A positive 3. Then I got x cubed, I got x squared, I got x to the first, and I have x to the 0. So how many x cubes do I have? 1. How many x squareds do I have? Nothing. How many x's do I have? Negative 4. And how what do I have at the end? Minus 15. All right. So once again, what we're going to do is we're going to drop down the 1. Multiply 3 times 1, which is 3. Add these together, you get 3. Multiply those together, you get 9. Add those together, you get 5. Multiply those together, you get 15. And our answer is super easy. Our remainder is 0, which means we actually found a factor, so we don't have to worry about putting a remainder at the end. I'm sorry. I wish I had a little bit harder question, but I didn't receive one. Okay? So my final answer is going to be 1x squared. Just leave it x squared, plus 3x plus 5. And voila, there's my answer. So I'm going to type in x squared. I think it was plus 3x plus 5. Let me check. Perfect. One more to go. All right. Oh, yay, I get to rewrite another one as a product of linear factors. Awesome. Let's do this one. All right, I got a really excited student. His problem is literally this problem, so he's going to follow along. Hopefully he'll write it down, not just type in the answer, because that would just be wrong. All right, so here we go. So we're going to start out with x cubed, then we're going to go to x squared, then x to the first, then x to the 0. Now, it says it has a known factor. This is a known factor. So what number would I have to plug in there to make it equal to 0? 4. If you're wondering why I'm so energetic and so excited, I've already had 2 cups of coffee, so I apologize if this is just going too fast for you. All right. So how many x cubes do I have? I got a whole lot of 1. How many x squareds? I got negative 6x squareds. How many x's? Well, in my life, actually, I think I have 3 x's. But right now, for our problem, we just have 0. Okay. All right. And then x to the 0 is 32. All right. So right now, what do we got to do first? We got to drop down the 1. 4 times 1 is 4. We add these together, we get negative 2. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. We add these together, we get negative 8. 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. And look at everybody. Look what I got. I got a remainder of 0, which tells me we have a what? We have a factor. Now we have to interpret this. What does this mean? That's how many x squareds we have. That's how many x to the first we have. And that's how many x to the zeros are constant. So how do we factor x squared minus 2x minus 8? How do we factor that? Well, there's a special way. We got to find two numbers that multiply together to equal this final constant at the end, negative 8. And we got to find two numbers that add together that equal the negative 2 that's in the middle. Now, this method only works if and only if this is a 1x squared. You can't do this method if it's like a 3, a 4, 5, any other number than 1. You can't do this method. But since we got a 1x squared, we can do this cool little method that was taught to me many moons ago. All right, so what are the only factors of 8? 8 times 1 and 4 times 2. That's it. So what numbers? 8 and 1 can be added to a 9 or added to a 7 if one of them is negative. Ooh, that can be added to a 6, but can also get us to a what? Negative 2. So I got 4 and 2, 4 and 2, but I got to make it a negative 8. So I'm going to make the 4 negative. Why am I making the 4 negative? Because I got to come up with a negative 2 and a negative 8. This is the method that you got to figure out how it works so that you can factor these guys. This is super easy now. Check this out. We've got x minus 4 as one of the factors, and we have x plus 2 as another factor. And then we take in our final factor they told us was, let's see, what is it? X minus 4. So here's our final answer, everybody. P of x equals x minus 4 times x plus 2 times our original factor of x minus 4. Wait a second. Do you guys see something? Do you see you have two x minus 4s? So watch this. Watch what I'm going to do. You are also allowed to write it like this. This is really cool. This is x minus 4 squared. That's another way that you can write it. That's even a more condensed version. And that's how I'm going to write it. And if the Khan Academy counts me wrong, well, then they're just wrong. But they're not going to count me wrong because they're mostly right. So I appreciate the Khan Academy. So please do not think I'm criticizing you, okay? So here we go. Because you guys are awesome. You guys make my life so much easier because you give me awesome problems to teach students that help make them college ready. So I appreciate you all. So I'm not criticizing. So please don't hear that, okay? I love you guys. You guys are awesome. All right, so see how I have x minus 4 squared? That's basically saying x minus 4 times x minus 4. And, wait for it, Dremel. Nailed it! That's all you got to do. You all have a wonderful day.